something so ugly like this podcast room before was so ugly, and then picturing something in your head and then seeing it finish, it's like, oh, that's really freaking cool. And I did that. So I love the satisfaction of it.
First episode. Shit. Okay.
Do you know what you're going to say?
I think I do. What's going on, everybody? My name's Ryan Snaadt. It rhymes with odd, and welcome to the Rhymes with Odd podcast. Lots of rhyming going on. This is the inaugural episode 1, with my wife, Paige Snaadt. Give everybody a round of applause. Thanks for coming on the show, Paige. I think I might have a soundboard here. Yeah, there we go. Woo! All right, sweet. So this is episode number 1. This whole podcast is based around business, self-improvement in all areas of life. I'm going to have some great guests on. This first episode, though, I wanted to have my wife, Paige, on to talk about, one, the space that we're in right now, the podcast studio that she had a really big hand in creating. If you want to see a video we just recorded with her about the transformation of the space room by room, make sure to go check out my YouTube channel. Just search Ryan Snaadt in the search bar. You'll find it. But today, I think we're just going to talk about that, and then also just how we met, a little bit about Paige and I and kind of our story of how we've been together for going on 12 years now. Mm-hmm. So, Paige, welcome to the show.
Thanks. It creeps me out a little bit.
She hates the headphones. She doesn't like the noise canceling. So for the people that don't know, who are you and what do you do?
I am Paige Snaadt. I am a hairstylist in Ankeny, Iowa. I've been doing it for 10 years now, so most of Ryan and I's relationship was really cool and weird, saying out loud. And then I like to do home improvement stuff and carpentry. My dad has done carpentry like his whole life, so I learned a lot from him growing up, and I love it. So I was kind of the main brain and brawn for this whole podcast studio, office, and everything. So I love it. It's fun.
Yeah. So with your interest in design and stuff, what caused you to do hair specifically? Because when we first met, you were like, oh, I just decided I'm going to do hair instead of architecture. So talk through that a little bit.
Yeah. So I wanted to be an architect since like 5th grade, probably, because I was around my dad doing carpentry and all that kind of stuff. So I still love designing floor plans for houses and obviously doing design stuff in now office space and our own house. I'm always doing some sort of DIY project, which drives Ryan nuts. But yeah, so I had always wanted to be an architect, and then I got to, ironically, I just told the story today at my salon, which is weird.
Oh.
I got to pre-calculus my junior year in high school, and I loved it because I was a nerd and I liked math. And I got a B in the class instead of an A, God forbid. So it made me mad. And I was like, crap, I'm going to have to do calculus my senior year. And then I'm going to have to do college calculus. And then I discovered that architecture school was a 6-year program instead of a 4-year program. And that freaked me out. Plus, my high school, we didn't do finals. So I had no clue how to study. I never had to. I was like, I think 6th in my class, so I never studied. So that freaked me out too. Just thinking that I would have to actually study and do, big important things. Plus, I heard that with architecture, you may or may not even pass the board. So you'd go to school for 6 years, and then you may or may not actually get to do the career you worked on for 6 years. So that was also terrifying. So I was talking with my friends, and they were like, do hair. You love hair.
It's almost just like building houses and buildings.
Yeah, completely the same. But I would do all my friends' hair for like prom and dances and stuff like that. And I just thought it was fun. I didn't think of it as a career. And yeah, so they're all just like, duh, do hair. It's not that hard. And I was like, oh, okay. And I looked into it, and I looked at a school, and I went and did it. And actually my grandparents were kind of pissed that I decided to do hair. Because if you think just in broad terms, salary of an architect versus salary of a hairstylist, they're a little different. But when you really look into it, you can make whatever you want as a hairstylist. Depends on where you're at, how you structure it, all that kind of stuff. I won't go in the fine details of that, but my grandparents were pissed.
Mm-hmm.
They were pissed that I was doing hair because I have cousins that are nurse practitioners and pharmacists and dentists. And then here I am like, I'm going to be a hairstylist. So they weren't too thrilled about that. But now, here we are 10 years later, and it only took them a couple years. They discovered, okay, you can make money in hair and you are really talented in it and really skilled in it. So now they're like proud. They're like, yeah, our granddaughter's a hairstylist. And I'm like, yeah, that's right.
Sure. So with the design stuff, what's been kind of your, I guess, where have you learned some of the stuff? Where have you drawn inspiration? Because it's just a hobby at this point, right? Mm-hmm. Just something you do for fun.
I always say if I have my midlife crisis, I'll become an interior designer. Just because it's fun. I've always liked it. I've always been interested in how houses are built and how people come up with the design of a space. I've always loved watching like House Hunters and Fixer Upper, all those types of shows. I watched them all the time growing up. So I found what kind of style I like through watching those shows. And then with my dad doing carpentry, I see how things are built, and I love learning, how you build a wall or how you build a dresser and all these things, and learning, the right way to do it versus the easy way to do it. And that's kind of a pain in the butt sometimes, but it's fun. It's interesting, and it's cool seeing something go from something so ugly like this podcast room before was so ugly, and then picturing something in your head and then seeing it finish. It's like, oh, that's really freaking cool. And I did that. So I love the satisfaction of it.
I could definitely see come midlife time, if you decide that happens, I could definitely see that happening in the next 10 years or so. But
so if you want me to design a space for you, I got you.
She's been offered. People have offered for her to come, and she hasn't done it because she doesn't think she can. I think you could do a really good job. So
it's just nerve-wracking. Like, doing something for yourself is one thing, or for your husband's office, that's, another thing, because we can be very candid with each other of like, no, I don't think that will look cool and it's not going to offend me. Or I can defend myself and be like, no, it's going to look freaking sweet. Just trust me. Mm-hmm. And compared to like somebody you don't know, you have to have the right sort of confidence of like, no, you can trust me, and you're spending somebody else's money. So that's like kind of terrifying too, because you don't want to overspend, but you don't want them to have an expectation of you're going to spend this much and then you spend less. And some people are weird about that. So
for sure. Let's transition the conversation to us. Well, how we kind of first met. I know, just to get now we know a little bit about your kind of backstory and career and stuff like that. Do you want to tell the story about how we met those fateful dozen years ago? 12 years back in the eons of the late 2000s.
2011 to be exact.
Oh.
Mm-mm. It was actually 12 years ago this month that we first met too.
Fateful.
Creepy. Yeah, so it was June. We're setting the scene here.
It's a hot summer day.
Early June. I was wearing a white tank top with blue flowers.
Maybe not that detailed.
No, so I had gone to a baseball game. We're going to start when you first saw me.
Okay.
I had gone to a baseball game. I was dating somebody. I don't even know if you count it as dating. It lasted 2 weeks, so it doesn't really count. But I had come to watch the Fort Madison Bloodhound baseball game.
We brought crowds.
Play freaking double headers every time, my lord. So I had come to watch the game and watch my boyfriend, and apparently all the guys didn't believe that I was this guy's girlfriend. I mean, Ryan, you can say your perspective on that part.
Oh yeah, so he had mentioned like, oh yeah, that's my girlfriend in the stands, and at these games, it's in the middle of the summer. In Iowa, we play baseball in the summer, so if people come to the game, it's not like you just wandered by. It's like you made an effort to go. So we all kind of looked out and looked at her. I was like, oh dang, she's really pretty. And basically the conversation went like he wasn't being very good to her at the time, and I was like, dude, if he doesn't treat her well, I will, like kind of as a joke, but ended up becoming reality, which is fun. So
yep. So literally probably like 2 weeks later, we had broken up, and
You and the previous guy.
Yeah, me and the previous guy, not Ryan. Ryan hadn't even talked to me yet. And to put in perspective, my dad is like 6'8" and like 400 plus pounds. So he's a big ass dude. And this guy that I was dating, he was too intimidated by my dad to come back to my house to pick up his baseball glove that he left in my car. So I had to drive the 20 minutes to Fort Madison to another damn baseball game to drop off his glove because he failed a class, so he wasn't playing. And on the way out, I hear some yelling, and I'm like, what the hell? And I look over, and it's this guy out in the outfield. The ball, like, pitch had been thrown, ball was hit. This kid in the outfield is turned around, yelling, I'm sorry that he was a pussy. And I was just like, what? Are you talking to me? And it was Ryan, and he's like, yeah, you. And I was just like, okay. And I saw that he was number 16.
Ha
That's the first thing he said to me. And so I added him on Facebook because I was like, okay, I don't even know what this kid looks like or what his name is, but I know he's number 16. So I added him on Facebook, and he messaged me first saying, it's number 16. So that's how we joke about that. And I actually didn't like Ryan at first. We talked a little bit, and I liked his personality. And then it came the question of, do you party? And
Rage.
Yeah, and I was not a partier in high school. I was quite the opposite. I was very much a prude. I hated everybody that went out and partied because it was underage drinking, and I was very much a goody two-shoes. You follow the rules. Mm-hmm. Like, I wasn't stickler on it, but...
Yes, you were.
But no, certain things like that, though, than I was, because I was just like, you're going to get drunk and get in a car accident and die. Like, that was... that was my perspective, plus a lot of my classmates that did go to parties, I was not close with them or friends with them, so kind of had an association with that. And so I had asked Ryan, like, oh, what did you do tonight? And he's like, oh, I just went to a party, haha. And I was like, oh, like a birthday party or like a party? And he's like, a party. And I was just like, oh. And I immediately was like, nope, I am not dating somebody that it's a partier, drinker. Like, I do not want to be part of that crowd. So I stopped talking to him. And I started talking to this other guy. I had a baseball theme going on that summer because this other guy was on the baseball team, and he was an even more of a partier than Ryan was. But I didn't know that because I didn't ask that question. Went on a date with this other guy.
She sounds like she's a get around. She wasn't, though.
I really wasn't.
But she was just like trying to find somebody that she was interested in.
Trying to find love.
In all the wrong places, apparently.
No, just on the Fort Madison baseball team. So I went on a date with this other guy. I paid for our movie, and I drove.
Classy.
Yeah. So that was just like red flag. And then he was so boring. He had the typical like, haha, yeah, I see. Just the boring short answers versus when I talked to Ryan, he would actually have a conversation with me. And I was like, oh, okay, like this kid could actually talk. And he's not like, oh, I'm just texting real fast. Like he was into the conversation. And so I was talking with my friends, and they're like, we like Ryan. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, they do.
They still do.
Team Ryan.
And so they're like, you should text Ryan. Like, we like him. Get rid of the other guy. And I was like, well, I already got rid of the other guy. Okay, fine. I'll text Ryan. So instead of a normal, like, hey, how's it going? Haven't talked to you for a while. No, I tell him a fun fact about dolphins. Dumb as shit, but I was super hyper that day, and I was like, okay, I feel like Ryan is going to understand this weird, random fact and not question it. Sure enough, he sent me a text back about a fun fact about otters. And then it was like, we've been together ever since. Like, I went to Florida on vacation, and then I came back and was like, hey, you're asking me out.
Kind of forced my hand there. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, it's kind of funny just thinking, because that was 12 years ago,
mm-hmm.
and I was a junior in high school, and you were a senior.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of started dating in the summer, classic summertime romance that bled into stuff. So it's kind of interesting how life has changed, you know, like
mm-hmm.
all the things we've been through. And it's interesting too, because people talk about getting bored with your partner, but we still to this day have like 3+ hour long conversations about literally anything. We can just talk forever. So
mm-hmm.
it's always fun having that
Mhm.
instead of just, we gotta be in the same room again with people.
We're always doing something fun, whether it's just watching a show or talking for hours, or like last night we played a board game.
Old people stuff.
It was just something different, and it's cool seeing how we've evolved too from when we were 16 and 17 to 28, 29. Like,
sure.
It's cool.
Did you think, so fast forwarding to, I went to Simpson College in Indianola, south of Des Moines. I was just there today for a shoot, ironically. Did you have any inclination at that point in time that I would be owning my own business and doing the things that I'm doing now? Because I would say, I mean, at that time, you were already doing hair 10 years ago. So I could pretty confidently guess you'd be doing hair to this time. What do you think? Where was your mind with that in terms of thinking if I would ever do something like this that I'm doing now?
I don't know. Because you didn't really know what you wanted to do either. Because you knew how set I was on doing hair when we first started dating. So you're like, oh, you have your life figured out and your career figured out. And you're like, I don't know what the hell I want to do. And so, and you didn't have, like, you had tons of interests, but nothing that was like career oriented. So you're like, I'll just go for business. And I was like, okay, like, you'd be good at that. Like, you got the right mindset and you're really good at sales. And so, like, even my family, they're like, oh, he's going to go into sales. Like, hands down, he loves talking.
Very true. Not so much love it. I'm just good at talking, I suppose. It's
You
a skill.
love it.
It's a skill set of mine.
You don't stop talking,
Why-
even at night.
We have a podcast, so it's kind of, I sit here and, yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So I didn't really know what you were going to do until you started getting deeper into college. And then all of a sudden you randomly were like, I'm going to start making videos. And I was just like, oh, great. Like, okay, you're going to be one of those weird people that are like, oh, I'm going to make videos and they're going to be so cool and they look like shit. Like, I know some people that are like, oh yeah, my husband's a videographer. And I'm like, oh, really? And they're like, well, he just does it for fun. And I'm like, okay, so he probably isn't that good at it. Sorry, people. But no, it definitely takes some skill. And once you started doing it, I could see the potential once you started doing it. Like, you did like a music video for your friend Adam playing the guitar out in the forest. It looked cool as shit, though. It was so random. And I didn't know how big of a career you could make with videography. And so at first I was like, oh, it's just a hobby for you. You're really good at it. And if you get money, cool. If not, like, you're going into business. You'll be able to get a corporate job and make lots of money and climb the ladder that way. And you were kind of thinking that for a while. And then video stuff kind of kept creeping in. And here you are now. So I had no clue. I knew before you did, for sure, that you were going to have your own business. But early years, no. I had no clue.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting seeing how it all plays out there.
Mm-hmm.
I guess another thing that wanted to be brought up was kind of in terms of your design stuff. What do you see, like, if you decided to go that route with your career? What would you want to do? Would you want to design homes, work for a design company? Like, does anything jump at you as like interesting stuff in that realm?
I don't think I'd want to work for someone because I feel like it's such a creative industry that I wouldn't want to have somebody tell me, hey, you're going to go design this person's house. Because if they like gaudy stuff and like very, very royal and that, like, that's not me. Like, I like industrial farmhouse. I like mixing
Joanna Gaines.
Yeah, like Joanna Gaines, but not as
Magnolia.
Not as farmhousey, but but I can do stuff like, your office too. That's more modern and I don't know, sleek lines and stuff like that too. So I wouldn't want somebody saying you're going to go design this person's house and then it's not my style. Like, I would want to be my own person, be my own business, and have somebody be like, oh, I love what you do. Can you come do my house or can you do my room? Which, yes, the old owners of our current house did ask me to do that, and I'm not confident in that yet, but...
Go for it! Comment below if you think she should go design our neighbor's new house.
I should.
Our former owner of our current house's new house. Say
That's
that
not
10 times
confusing. The previous owner of our house, we invited them over
Right.
to see what improvements we've done on the house. And the wife loved like everything that I did. And she's like, oh, I have a room that I don't know what I want to do with. You should come and look at it. And Ryan's like, yeah, you should. And in my, like deep down in my gut, I'm like, oh, that'd be so cool. But like externally, it makes me very nervous. Just like somebody else wants me to do that for them. And I don't know how I would charge them, or if they just say, hey, I have $500, go crazy, buy this or whatever. Like that would be so nerve-wracking. But if I get to that point in my job that I can't stand anymore, because being a hairstylist is very hard on your body, that would be something I would definitely do.
For sure.
But by myself.
Okay. Yeah. On your own. Yeah. So switching gears really quickly. We got married in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Best year for a wedding
Mm-hmm.
ever. And then what was it? 2 years later, we welcomed our son into the world, our little baby
Roan.
boy, little Roan into the world. He just turned 1
Mm-hmm.
a couple weeks ago.
So sad.
It's sad.
Yes, he's so big.
He's a chunk.
He is a chunk.
That's what happens. That you get chunky. He's been eating like 4 grown men. What are you excited about with the family stuff as we've kind of gotten married, gotten situated, started a family? What are you most excited about looking forward?
I look forward to like creating memories with them and things that either we got to do as kids and now it's like cool being on the parent end of things, and then like creating new memories of stuff that we've always wanted to do or something that we just fall upon, like, oh, we're going to start doing this, and it becomes a tradition that we just fell upon it and weren't planning it. And I think it's just cool. Like I was talking with one of my guests at the salon today about how parenting is so cool and so interesting, but so hard at the same time. And I try not to think of the hard stuff. I just think of the daily, like, we're forming him to be like a good person and taking what we've learned from our lives and to help him be his own person, but also encourage him to be his own person. And, you know, we're not going to say, you have to do this. Like, I don't know. It's just so cool. So I look forward to watching him grow up and our new little one that's coming, what she's going to do and how they interact with each other. Because I have an older sister, but you didn't have any siblings. So it'll also be fun for me to watch you see that interaction between them, because that's going to be a whole new world for you of as a parent, and just seeing how siblings are, because I understand some of those weird compromises and just dynamics of always fighting but not actually hating each other, and you never got that. So it'll be fun to watch that happen. And if our family keeps growing, then cool, and if not, cool. Like, it'd be fun to see where we are in the next 10, 20 years with our lives and our kids and
I think
puppers.
Oh yeah, and the dogs too. I think it's interesting too. Just I was talking about this today on one of my shoots. Somebody was asking like, "What's the adjustment been like having a kid and everything?" It's like you basically your whole life stops for 6 months to figure out how to take care of an infant, and once they start to sleep through the night, then you start reintroducing parts of your life of who you were before. I think that's been kind of the most interesting transition around, is like for me personally, like my gym schedule, my work schedule. When to cook, when you eat, when you go out with friends, like social time, which doesn't happen hardly ever anymore. But it's stuff like that. Just I think the adjustment of like who you were before, and then as you come out the other side, like who you are now and like what you're interested in. And I know we've made a really big focus personally just to like still be ourselves and still prioritize our marriage and like time with each other and time by ourselves and like those things, because so many people lose themselves when they start having children, and then they look up 10 years later and they're like, look in the mirror, like, who the hell is this old person in my clothes, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting as a woman too, because you hear other women talk about like being a mom and how it changes you, and it not only physically but mentally. And the physical is the hardest part, I think, of just being a mom, is you don't look the same. And even if you do look the same, you don't feel the same. Because just with talking with my best friend over the weekend, she's teeny tiny. And to me, she looks the same. But she's like, no, I have extra skin that I didn't have before. And even though to me, she still looks fantastic. Her son's 4. And I don't feel like that for myself. But she's like, you're in that era. You're in your mom era. Like, we all go through it.
Bless up, baby.
But it's just interesting. You hear other women talk about it and you don't know what that feels like or what that looks like for yourself until you go through it. And that's such a hard challenge. And I know it's hard for Ryan too, because you're having to deal with me feeling these ways that I do about myself. And you're like, you're still my wife. You're still beautiful. Like, you created our son and now you're creating another one. Like, you're doing awesome. Like, that's really cool. And so it's a cool dynamic between the two of us too, of like, you're always trying to help boost my confidence. And I appreciate that.
Sure. Well, and especially right now, it's like your Roan's a year old. You're pregnant with our second. Like, by the time you would get right where you want to look, you're going to start looking the way you don't want to look again. So it's like, it's kind of like that. Okay. It's okay to,
I'm in my mom era.
Yeah. Going through that, like just the yo-yoing in good weight, in terms of pregnancy weight and stuff like that. So it's always a challenge there.
Yeah.
I think it's just interesting too, just the dynamics of how we've grown as people, because we have to now not only just be together in a relationship, but now we have to like co-parent this small human and put all that together. So I think that's been kind of an interesting challenge of life and how things are kind of progressing along the way.
Yeah. I also said he's a good kid too.
Yeah. He's a really great little dude.
Shout out to Roan.
Yeah. Right. So in closing, what thoughts do you have about the space, the podcast, the business? What things are you excited about looking forward in the next couple months here?
For old Snaadt Media Group.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing how you grow and seeing like this podcast grow and other people's podcasts grow as you help them. And just, you have a goal of hiring somebody by the end of the year, whether that's full-time or part-time. And so I look forward to seeing how that goes and if they office here and if they appreciate all my design work. But no, I just look forward to seeing how you grow. And I know that's really important to you, just, not only as a business owner, but as a father and as a partner. Like, you want to be able to provide for us, and you're doing great. And Snaadt Media Group.
Snaadt Media Dupe. Doppelganger.
SMG is doing great. So I just look forward to seeing how you grow and how you evolve as a business owner, and how, you're balancing work and home life really well right now. So it'll just be cool to see how that goes with, especially another little minion of ours, a little Snoddler, coming into the world in the next 6 months. So yeah, I just look forward to watching the business grow, and I suppose I'll follow this podcast or something.
There you go. Yeah, we'll have to send you some clips that you can put on your Instagram and TikTok to get you to the next level of followers. Really help with your marketing for yourself.
Yes, because this podcast will help with hairstylists.
It will. Awesome. Well, thanks, Paige, for coming on the show. This is our first episode. As I mentioned, we'll have other interesting guests between business folks, self-improvement. We're going to cover all levels of that when it comes to health, wealth, relationships, faith. The whole gamut of everything you could possibly think about in terms of getting better at life. So
a fun conversation.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on. This is Ryan Snaadt and Paige Snaadt. It rhymes with odd, and that's also the name of the pod.
Hey.
We'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.
Bye.